Good morning. Welcome back to the Vitality Project. I'm Dr. Bob. Yesterday, I shared with you how vital it is for those of us in lifelong recovery from prior addictions to keep a really close eye on stressors in our lives, even at the risk of sometimes appearing selfish. Here's a place where I really like the distinction that the Swiss psychiatrist and pioneer of modern psychology and psychotherapy, Dr. Carl Jung, made a distinction. He made a distinction between self with a small s and self with a big S. So if you can imagine self with a small s, small, and then self with a capital S, big S. Self with a small s represents for Carl Jung, as you might imagine, our smaller self. This is what psychology might call our ego. And even though this smaller s self or ego is absolutely important for navigating through our lives, I think most of us have a sense that it's perhaps aiming a little bit low if the goal of my life is somehow to make the small s ego or self the center of the universe. That's just aiming too low. Dr. Jung goes on to suggest what every major religious tradition has only ever affirmed, that our lives ought rightly to be lived in service to this greater self, what he said, self with a big S. And, whether we call this greater self God or the universe or even nature, it doesn't matter what we call it nearly so much as that we truly get what we're here for in the first place. I personally like how the 12-step programs of addiction recovery prefer to simply point in the direction of a power greater than ourselves and then leave the specific naming of that power up to each individual. So it is that we're here to help nature or that power greater than ourselves to evolve forward. And insofar as this is the case, our primary directive in our lives, ethically or morally, is to ask this question: how can I be of maximum service to the greater self? It's in this sense that Carl Jung would say that we need to be quite selfish, but he would say selfish with a big S, in service of that which is greater. Even if somebody judges us in our doing that as being small s selfish. I know this is probably new and complicated to get at the beginning. What I'd like to do is come back tomorrow and dive more deeply into how this question of which self are we serving, how it might make all the difference in our recovery. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you tomorrow.